We're just about to hear from Karen Nyberg. Now, she is an astronaut with over 128, or no, 180 days in space. She's a mechanical engineer for NASA and so excited. When I heard that I got to introduce Karen Nyberg, I was so excited to be able to do this. Karen, good afternoon, I believe, for you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Good, 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 good. Well, you get to take the stage, and we're excited to hear about everything whenever it comes to keeping optimism in the future. This is Karen Nyberg.
Thank you, Dex. When I was thinking about what I wanted to share today, and I thought about you, the audience, and I thought about where you might be in your life right now. Maybe you are a student, maybe you just started a new career. And I look back to my life and the path that got me to where I am right now. I am about to turn 51 years old, and I recently retired as an astronaut. I've been an astronaut for 20 years. And I came to a realization about something that I wish somebody had shared with me when I was starting out. I remember when I was just 8 years old, NASA had just selected the class of astronauts with the first females. At the same time, the space shuttle program, this new vehicle in development by NASA, it would fly just a few years later. And something struck me then when I was 8, and I decided that I wanted to be an astronaut. And I grew up in a tiny, tiny community in central Minnesota. And admittedly, I was a pretty naive little girl, but now I had this dream. And from that point on, motivated by that dream and that goal, I went down this very focused path of trying to reach this goal. When I started college, in hindsight, I see now that I had a pretty narrow worldview. But I also understand that through all of my college, through all of my graduate school, through all of the jobs that I had, every step of the way, every fear that I ever felt, like when I had to get up in front of a group of people to talk, every time I exited my comfort zone, like the first time I learned to scuba dive and taking my mask off 10 feet underwater, every mistake that I made, and there were so many, every disappointment that I ever felt, like the time I was in my first couple of years of college and I applied to an internship at Glenn Research Center and I wasn't accepted. Every failure that I met along the way, and then also every success. I know now that every single one of those things brought me a little bit closer to the worldview and the person that I needed to be to reach the goal that I was trying to reach. And then 20 years ago, I was selected as an astronaut. And after several years of pretty intense, lots and lots of training, I had my first opportunity to fly in space in 2008. And I got to fly on the space shuttle. The main goal of that mission, we were in the height of building the International Space Station at the time. And our job as our crew was to deliver and install the Japanese laboratory onto the space station. And we had so much training. And I think that's true with all astronauts. We get to a point that we're so comfortable in what we are doing. We are so focused on the job that launch day comes and we get suited up and we get in the vehicle. And it's all very familiar because we've done that so many times. And we also have this way to compartmentalize and keep the distractions away from our focus. It all changes though at liftoff. The vibrations and the sounds and the G-forces, all of that is not familiar on the first time that you fly. And for me, it was such a surreal experience that sometimes it's just a blur to me. But I did have one important job that I needed to do after we got to orbit. I was tasked to, once the engines cut off, I was supposed to take off my gloves, my helmet, which is all new without gravity, stuff it into a bag, unbuckle, get out of my seat, learn how to maneuver in zero G very quickly, grab a camera and go to the windows that are on top, looking out of the flight deck of the space shuttle, and get pictures of the external tank, that big fuel tank that was just used up as we launched. And we needed to get pictures of it as it fell back to Earth. And I was so focused on this task, I realized now that I paid no attention to anything else that was happening, this new environment I was in. I just made it work. But once I was done with that task, I had a chance to kind of stop and pause. And I remember, holding on, trying not to float away, holding on, turning around, looking into the cockpit at my colleagues and seeing things floating. And I probably had the biggest grin on my face. And I remember thinking, I did it. I am where I wanted to be, where I dreamt about being when I was 8 years old. I did it. And then about an hour later, we needed to open the payload bay doors. We were carrying the Japanese lab inside the payload bay of the space shuttle. Doors are closed to protect it during launch. But inside the payload bay doors, there are radiators, and we need to get those doors open pretty quickly so that we can reject the heat that the space shuttle is producing. And my buddy Ron and I were tasked to do that. So we go to the aft, the back of the flight deck in the shuttle, and there are two more windows that face backward into the payload bay. Well, it's been dark so far because the doors are closed. And we worked through the procedures meticulously, slowly got them open. And then all of a sudden, for the first time ever, I see the expanse of Earth. And the thoughts, the color, it's so vibrant, so blue. And against the blackest black I'd ever seen in my entire life. It was almost shocking. It was so beautiful. And all these thoughts start going through my head. All these, we just came from there. We just came from that place. And every person I know, except for the crew that's with me, every experience I've ever had, everything is down there. And it also has everything we need, all of our water, all of our air, all of our food, everything we as humans need to live. And so here I was just about an hour ago thinking about, wow, I reached my goal. And then boom, I see the Earth like this. And I think, have I reached my goal? What is my goal? All of a sudden, this path of certainty that I had been taking my entire life, this focus of getting to reach my dream and my goal, was almost shattered by seeing this. My mind was opened. It was time to approach the space station. It takes a couple of days. We do a bunch of orbital burns and slowly catch up to the space station in orbit. And first, when you see it, it's a tiny little dot in the distance. And you can see it in this picture, actually, on the right-hand side. And as we get closer, I remember just thinking how beautiful it was and how every single engineering line was so stark on this thing. And even though I had worked on projects as an engineer for the space station, I had learned the space station inside and out in my training as an astronaut. I realized that I'd never really, until I saw it with my own eyes, I never really fully understood the magnitude of the International Space Station. And I don't mean size, even though it is very, very big, but I mean the magnitude in what humanity had accomplished. Hundreds and thousands of people around the world, many countries, worked together to make this happen. And the space station has been flying above Earth now, about 250 miles above Earth, for 20 years. And it has been continually inhabited by people that entire time from multiple nations. And I think this experience of seeing it with my own eyes and actually feeling it really opened my mind to what else could we do? What else could we do as humanity if we picked a goal that was common, and every up to it was really life-changing for me. I had a newfound appreciation for Earth. My mind had opened up so much. that narrow worldview that I had when I started college was really expanding. But until then, everything that was expanding my view was external to me. But then I'd have a chance to see it expand from something inside. I found out I was pregnant with our son, Jack. My husband Doug and I were going to have a baby. I've learned so much raising Jack, and I'm sure most parents can relate to that. And I learned so much because his interests were always so different than my interests. He was interested in dinosaurs from the day he could look at a book. And he became very interested in prehistory and prehistoric mammals. And there was one point where he became very interested in animals that have become extinct since humans have existed, and that became extinct largely because of human activity, like the dodo bird and the Tasmanian tiger. And it really bothered him. I used to read to him a lot. And one time when he was 5 years old, we were reading something about endangered animals. And we read about the Sumatran tiger. And we read about how it is critically endangered. We read about where it's from, what habitats it lives in. And we read about why it's critically endangered. And of course, it's mostly human activity. And when we finished the reading, I said, "Oh, Jack, that makes me so sad." And without skipping a beat, my 5-year-old just said, "I'm not sad, Mommy. I'm angry." And it really made me think. And I was like, yes, we should be angry. We shouldn't be doing this to these animals. We should protect the animals. We should protect their habitats, and we should protect the ecosystems that make this earth work. And it really just, there's so many stories of raising my son where I realized the power that looking through someone else's eyes can have on your own worldview. My second chance to go to space was different than the first. It was 7 years ago. Of course, now my perspective had changed so much with the experiences I had had. And my motivation and my goals for going to space had shifted to some extent. It wasn't so much personal as it had been. And now I had a family. And it was also going to be different because the space shuttle had retired. And this time I was going to be arriving at the space station again, but on a Russian Soyuz. And I would be living at the space station for 6 months. And the crew that I flew up with on the Soyuz, I had a Russian commander, Fyodor, and my other crewmate was an Italian astronaut, Luca. And I was very excited actually because it was Luca's first flight. And, you know, I talked about seeing things through other people's eyes. And I was excited to see him see everything for the first time in space. So the first day we were there at the space station after we arrived, we went up to one of the windows and I remember the shutter was closed. We opened the shutter and it was dark out. And I think Luca was ready to go, "Oh, we'll come back later." But I noticed on the limb of the earth, a little white line. And I knew that the sun was about to rise. And so I really wanted to watch Luca watch this. And so he got himself up real close to the window, and I stayed back a little bit just so I could watch him as he watched. And when the sun starts to rise on space from the space station, the view we see first, it's just a white line on the horizon. And then we start to see some blues. And at that time, the space station starts to get lit up kind of this golden hue. And then it gets brighter and brighter. And the blues start turning darker and different shades. And then red comes in as the sun starts to crest the limb of the earth. And then finally, once it has completely risen off the limb of the earth, we see the Terminator on the earth. And it's very stark. It's very bright on one side and colorful, and you can see the depth of the clouds because of the angle of the sun. And it's pitch black on the other side, and the Terminator slowly goes over. This whole time, the space station lighting up, the solar rays are golden. And after the sun had completely come up, and I had been looking over at Luca, and the entire time he was staring with his mouth agape. And when the process was done, he just said, "How do you describe this?" And that's right. How do you describe this? For me, I want to be able to describe not just visually what I'm seeing, but I want to be able to describe how it makes me feel while I'm watching it. We as astronauts are so fortunate to have this gift of seeing Earth from that vantage point. I wish it is something that everybody would have the opportunity to do. I wish it was something you had the opportunity to do. One of our favorite places on the space station is the cupola. The cupola is nadir facing, means it faces the Earth. There are 7 windows, and we can get a 360-degree view of the Earth from there. And there's times I would just go sit in there, take pictures. Anytime there was downtime, that's a favorite thing for astronauts to do. One time during the summer, Doug and Jack, I knew, were visiting my in-laws in upstate New York, and we happened to pass right over there. And they were on the St. Lawrence River right off Lake Ontario. And I remember looking down or up and looking at the exact spot that I knew they were. And I felt this immediate connection. I almost wanted to wave, "Hi, I'm right here. Can you see me?" And I started thinking about them. And I started thinking, I wonder what they're doing. I wonder if Jack has napped yet today. I wonder if they're out on the river. I wonder if Doug has had a chance to relax, a little vacation from work. I wonder if Jack's been eating his vegetables. And I just was thinking about them and feeling this connection, like almost I was there. And then we continue on. We're not over any one spot very long when we're orbiting the Earth, and cross the Atlantic. And not half an hour later, we're over Northern Europe, Denmark, Germany, Sweden. And I found myself looking and finding a point and wondering about the people that were there and feeling a connection with them. And I remember thinking, I wonder if there are any little boys Jack's age, or any 3-year-old boys right there. And I wonder what they're doing. I wonder if they like dinosaurs too. I wonder if they live with both their parents. I wonder if their parents get enough vacation. I wonder if the little boy's been eating his vegetables. And I felt this connection to the people. And I noticed that then for the rest of my mission, so many times as I would go and look out the window, and as we would pass Egypt, as we pass Italy, any of these places, Australia, Brazil, South Africa, Greece, Iran, Peru, Mexico, China, New Brunswick, as we pass India, Tibet, I found myself looking and thinking and relating to all these people that I've never met and I probably never will, relating to them in ways that are relating to them in ways that make us common as people. And I think we tend as people so often to look at the things that make us different, and we don't pay enough attention to the things that we have in common. So what I've realized looking back over all of this is that the journey to get where you are is the real prize. For me, reaching the ultimate goal that I had set for myself when I was 8 was not the prize that I was really looking for. The journey to get there was the prize. All the moments when I was worried that something wouldn't turn out like I'd hoped it would, all the moments that I was scared, all the moments that I was lonely, and all of these highlight moments, a lot of them that I just talked about, All of those things together are what the prize is. So my advice to you is go after the big things, set your goals high and go get them, but be present in the journey at the moment too. Don't miss out what is going on right now because you're so laser focused on the end goal. If you pay attention, you'll find that your worldview is slowly opening up.
Hey guys, wow, that is amazing to hear your speech, Karen, and especially now with everything that's been happening with 2020, to think about that. I love the pictures and kind of we're all on one planet and just kind of feeling that relation to everyone that you're getting to float over as you're going around the globe. So one of the questions I wanted to ask, we have a little bit of time for Q&A, is during your 180 days in space, a lot of us, we see these space movies and we see things go wrong on the station or this or that. And one of the things I noticed in your speech is you almost have like tunnel vision. You've got this job and you've got to do this. What happens when maybe that red light comes on that, hey, something might be off? Did you ever have an experience like that? And what was that like for you? What went on?
We do prepare, and I think the reason we can do that with that tunnel vision is because of our training. And we did have an instance when I was on the space station. Luca, who I had talked about, and our crewmate Chris were out on a spacewalk. And my job was getting them in and out of the airlock and getting them in and out of their suits. Well, we had an emergency where Luca had water leaking into his helmet. And we needed to get him back into the airlock and out of his suit as quickly as possible. And it was, in hindsight, it was worse, I think, sometimes than we feel that it was at the time. He had water all over his head. It was in his eyes, going up his nose. And when the time came to get him, we had never trained for that particular emergency, but we just all worked together and knew what had to be done. And I worked from the inside of space station with the ground team, and our Russian cosmonaut crewmates came over to help. And we just got it done. There's really no time to worry or panic. You just, and largely, like I said, that's largely due to the training we get.
Right. So during your time on the International Space Station, what's your day like? I mean, you talked about having some downtime to be able to go to the room with all the windows, which, by the way, is an awesome social media picture. But
Yes, it is.
how often do you have downtime?
We work every weekday, getting from pretty much 7 in the morning till 6 or 7 at night. And that varies, but we also have workout time during the day. We work out 2 hours a day. And then Saturday, half a day is housekeeping, usually. And then the rest of the day is exercise and free time. And Sunday is usually the day with the most free time, where we get chances to talk to our family on Earth and that sort of thing. Hey, do you mind if I bring in a special guest?
Yeah, of course.
Speaking of living on space station, I don't know how many of you will recognize, this is my husband,
That's
Doug
awesome.
Hurley. Doug was the commander of the SpaceX Crew Dragon that just launched a couple months ago at the end of May. And he just spent 2 months living on space station, and he just arrived back home just over a month ago. And I thought it would be fun to bring him in, since he's obviously here with me. And I don't know if you have any questions for him or...
No, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us too. So what's it like having, two astronauts in the same family? I mean, like, do you guys talk about your day? What's that like?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, like most couples where they both work and, you share your day regardless of your field. I think with us, it's just a little easier because we kind of understand all the underlying things that happen around the office and the day-to-day environment. So I think, we understand each other, I think, a little bit more than maybe spouses that come from different lines of work and maybe have to have a little more context. So in a lot of ways, it's easier. And in other ways, it can be more challenging. I mean, we've had to make some incredible decisions for family reasons at times. And, you have to be in the spotlight at times and then be in a supporting role at times, just because of the way things work with flights and other things that are going on, and then the, you know, parenting and all those things. But I think in general for us, I think we both feel like it was easier to kind of understand what the other person was experiencing, rather than maybe somebody who doesn't go through it on a day-to-day basis.
You know, since we have you on, we only have about 4 minutes, but I did want to ask, you know, you talked about, you know, setting your goals high, and I truly believe in that. I think that's great advice. So for an 8-year-old who might be watching this, or anyone at whatever age, what kind of advice would you give them if they would love to go down the path that you did?
I think it starts with a lot of the cliche things like study hard, always do your best. But also, I would say pick what you really love to study in school. Once you get to the point where you're in college, pick what you really love. Don't say, I want to be an astronaut, so I need to study engineering, or I need to go in the military, or I need to do what you love, because then you're going to do a better job and you'll thrive in it. And also go out of your comfort zone. Do things that scare you a little bit. For me, it was talking in front of people when I was younger.
Mm.
And you have to do it, just do it. And so getting out of your comfort zone, working as hard as you can, and people, your teachers and everybody's going to know if you're working your hardest. You don't have to be the best student there is, but you have to be the hardest working student.
Absolutely. Love it. 3 minutes left. So parenting, with both of you being astronauts and having these missions where you're away for a long time, what's that like?
Well, I think it's a lot like, you know, families that have, you know, military members that deploy, or perhaps having jobs that are overseas, in different industries where they're gone for long periods of time. I think it's very similar. And kind of like I mentioned before, you have to just, it's a total team effort, 24/7, you know, regardless of whether you're there or not. You know, I think Karen, in some cases, you know, people, especially for mothers, tend to have issues with, you know, somebody going away for 6 months to go to space and live their dream and do something for the greater good. And I think, you know, she parented right along with me, even though she was in space, for that 6 months. You know, she sent a video to our son every day, which I thought was incredible. And knowing full well the effort that takes just to do that, and send a video message every day, and notes. And our son at the time was very young, only 3, and then just the emotional stability that you need to provide each other, because it's a stressful time, certainly for the family members on the ground, because the best you can do in a space mission is they come back. Everything else is a lot worse. And so knowing that stress, and knowing that the, you know, the parent on the ground is going through, not only because their loved one is in space, but also because they're kind of holding down the fort, so to speak, at home, and managing the household. And then, you know, when you come back, reintegrating into the family that has changed after, in my case, 2 months, or in Karen's case, 6 months, the dynamic changes, and you have to slowly reinsert yourself into that new normal. And that is a task that's not easy either. So, and just, you know, the thing is you just support each other. I mean, that is the bottom line. You're a team, and it's a team effort to make our family successfully get through these things. And I think, you know, we have worked very hard to try to do that and support each other, not only in our careers, but support each other, you know, at home, and raising our son.
I love that. And thank you guys so much for all that you do. I know the hard work and the effort that you guys have to put into this, and it's amazing to be able to speak with you. Karen, I wanted to ask one last question. You know, as this Care 24 continues, we're all about meeting the future with optimism. So, any last words that you would like to say to our audience?
Yeah, I know being optimistic sometimes can be hard, but I think we need to be optimistic to bring each other up, to bring each other out of times, and just help each other.
Love it. Thank you guys again so much. Thank you for all you do. It's been great speaking with you as we move into our next segment. Thanks again to Karen Nyberg and to Doug, our surprise guest. It was great to talk to you as well.
Thank you.